All right, welcome to week 2. Today we are talking about support systems, which depending on who you are and what you're going through and who you have around you may or may not be a really big deal. So I'm going to go ahead and start us off again with some of my story in regards to a support system. So for me, my story really changed throughout my time of processing all of this. I was never told up front with a lot of honesty who was involved. I got the slow trickle of information. Friends were involved, colleagues were involved, but I never had like, here's everything. I was just left with like, who else? Is she oh, the mail lady? Like I was just, and it just, I mean, it was a really cruel way to do it. I'm sure that wasn't the intention. I'm sure it was more of a self-preservation, like don't tell her everything. But then people would come out. I even had people approach me years after a divorce that I never was told about. So I initially, in like the depths of my despair, didn't talk to or hang out with or associate with anybody, not even my very closest friends. And I remember I have my very best friend who happens to be a therapist. I was like, were you involved? I was like, you have to tell me. And she was like, what? No. But I mean, it wasn't a ridiculous question for me because so many people who I thought were safe in my life weren't. And so I went for, and I don't know how long I isolated myself. It feels like 1,000 years, but it was probably a full year or close to it. And then what happened is this woman, she is about, I don't know, she might be 20 years older than me. And she is just the greatest person on earth. And she just loves to love on other women. That's her thing. And she just showed up at my house 2 times a week. Same time, always consistent, always dependable. And she just basically was like a mom to me. She would let me cry and whine and be pissed and vent. And she would tell me when I was being a fool. She was telling me when I was believing things weren't false, like true about myself. And she really started to break down a lot of stuff for me. I had a lot of problems with just being around, for me, other men. Any men. I did not want to even be in like the grocery store near them. And so she would really be like, and she was like one of those women that like you just are drawn to because they're so strong and certain. And she would just be like, Melissa, that's just not true. Like not all men are bad and not all men are thinking what you think they're thinking. And so she basically just shut me down when I needed to be shut down. And because I was so stuck in my head, like we're talking about the trauma, and I was just, I don't know, I just was there. I was just, whatever was in my head was what was true, and you can't say anything else. And so that's kind of where I was. And I'll tell you that for me, that support group of having her in my life, and then and through her allowing just a small group of my friends to kind of come back into my life. I had just a few people, maybe I think three people that I really trusted, that I would just nonstop tell them the same dumb crap over and over again. And those are the good friends because they're like, okay, very patient, very kind with me, and just let me just say the same thing all the time. And so that's what really helped to save my sanity, a sounding board. And so today we're going to talk a little bit more about the different types of support systems that you can have. Some people don't have the persistent woman who's going to show up every week for a couple of years like I did. So we're going to really jump into that and why that's so important. So let's see, Julia, if you will talk a little bit about just from like a psychological and survival reasons, why is a support system going to be important to our recovery from an affair?
Yeah, and I mean exactly what you said, like we do that isolating. And a lot of it's the shame, right? We don't want to talk about it. But then also some of it can be some of the depression, because depression likes to set in and sort of zap us from any kind of energy. It kind of zaps us from wanting to connect with people. It kind of zaps us from wanting to do anything other than I mean, oftentimes even the bare, like we were talking about before, the bare essentials for survival, let alone having the strength to be able to reach out and ask for help. And the more we isolate, the more kind of depleted we feel, and the less we feel like reaching out for support. And so at some point, we have to kind of, like, you were so blessed, Melissa, to have this woman who just sort of like knocked down your door and said, like, listen, we are talking about this. We are looking at this. You are not going to isolate anymore because that is not helpful. It might be what you feel like doing, but it's not in your best interest. And so it's not what's good for you. It might be what you feel in this moment. Like you feel like just not talking to anyone, not facing anyone, not looking at this, but it's not necessarily the thing that is best for you. And so figuring out it's always the path of least resistance. What's the smallest thing that I can do that's going to get me just taking one little step forward? And maybe like finding a support group in your community feels completely overwhelming. Like, I don't want to have to go online and look and research and find something, or, you know, like I don't want to have to go out to a friend's house to go and like sit and have tea or whatever and talk about stuff. Maybe I don't even really want to pick up the phone right now. But what I can do maybe is just go online and do a little search on Facebook to find, you know, there's going to be a group for women or men, for people who have been cheated on. There's going to be a group. And so maybe that's the thing that feels easiest. Maybe picking up the phone and calling a good friend, you know, one of those friends, whether those like ride or die friends, where, you know, or like I like to call them, no, I'm not going to use that term. Probably not the most appropriate place to use it. Well, never mind. But we'll call them the ride or die friends, the friends where, you know, they're there for you. The ones that you're telling yourself like, oh, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to deal with it. The good friends, they do. They want to be there for you. Like, it gives them something to do when they know that you're struggling and suffering. It makes them feel like they're able to do something if they're just able to be there for you and listen and hold that space for you. And so giving them that opportunity to be there for you. Sometimes I think too, a lot of times our brain will tell us like, nobody wants to hear it. No one cares. Our good friends, they do care. They don't want to see us isolating. They're worried about us. And so allowing ourselves to do the thing that feels easiest, but getting out of the isolation, because again, that, you know, that secrecy and that isolation and that holding everything in, it just compounds and it grows exponentially. The more we kind of stay stuck in our heads and stuck in our own isolation, the more exponentially that shame and that pain and that struggle just keeps multiplying and dividing, and it's conquering us. It's conquering us. So reaching out the easiest way possible, the most doable way, at least to start. Not go big or go home. It's go like small or moderate and make it doable.
Right. And, you know, just for those of you who don't have like your ride or die friend, and I know a lot of our male members, a lot of you guys don't tend to have really close friends you can reach out to, and our female viewers as well. So we do have a private Facebook group as well that you can be a part of. And I know some people are a little sketchy about Facebook groups. They're like, oh, are they going to be able to, like, is my partner going to be able to see me involved in this? Private groups, no, they can't. So it is private for that reason. Nobody else can see it. And it's just a place for you to throw out things you're dealing with and support each other in that way. So that is a resource. Yeah, I'll let you go, Milo. I know that you have some other thoughts on that. So I guess if you are alone, like you don't have the family piece or you don't have the close friends, I guess online is our place to find support, right?
You know, I think that too, when you're facing a scenario like this, you are displaced. You're displaced from your home. You're displaced of all the familiarity that you've had. And so all of a sudden you become a little paranoid. And I don't mean paranoid in a bad way. I just mean that you're afraid of anybody else causing you any more pain. So sometimes it's very painful to even verbalize what has happened, and you're tired of hearing it, you're tired of talking about it, and you're tired of having to explain yourself or your inability. A lot of times we are moms or dads and we have bake sales, or we have to go take the team cupcakes, right? So all of a sudden you always have that mom or that dad that they're like the Martha Stewart, and they've like handcrafted each cupcake with each player's initials, and and you're like, girl, I'm wearing my Lululemons from 5 days ago. I can't do that. I'm wearing yoga pants that I've had on all week. So what you have to recognize is that you've got to do what you've got to do. But if you don't verbalize, people don't know. People don't know. Everybody's just trying to live their life. And that's the hardest part about all this, is the world keeps turning and everybody keeps going. And you're like, but this just happened to me. I'm displaced. I'm out of the home. My home is fallen apart. So when you acknowledge that, and it's not even sometimes verbalizing it, like Melissa mentioned, online is a great space. There's a lot of therapy apps that are affordable. For me, I'm huge on, whenever I see anybody that's faced trauma regarding an affair, what I always say is, have you gone to your medical doctor? And you may be thinking, what do you mean? How's a medical doctor going to support you? They will. So you go to your medical doctor, you say, hey, this is what's, you don't have to go into great detail, but you need to at least communicate it. And then again, at least physically, you're getting the support that you need, whatever type of insurance, when you go to your medical doctor. And a lot of times what they can do is they can provide support for you to see somebody. And if you're not up to seeing somebody like a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, then a lot of times there are resources in your community or even outside your community. Like for me, I went like two cities out of where I lived, because I live in a really small area, and I went to a different community and I went to a different area, and I sought support that way. Online obviously is a great support. Like, Facebook groups do get a bad rap, but again, try it. If it doesn't work, leave the group. If it doesn't work, leave the group. Keep trying until you find your people, because your people are out there. There is someone for everyone. And again, for me personally, I'm Hispanic. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to go to my people, literally, we're going to talk about, they're going to understand. And I didn't find comfort in that group that was specifically for my culture. So I got out of that group. And then I found the groups that did support me. And I don't think you have to be an oversharer. Sometimes you can just observe. And sometimes you can just observe until you're ready to communicate, until you're ready to ask for the help that you need to ask for. So go to your medical doctor, online support, keep trying different groups. Once you get into one group, they'll talk about another group, and then you can kind of like keep trying. You type in Facebook, Hispanic divorce groups or Hispanic groups that are dealing with affairs. I mean, you name it, you type it in there. It's its own search engine of its own there on Facebook, and you just keep typing it. Another thing that really soothed me were YouTube videos. I watched a lot of YouTube videos that gave me a lot of comfort. They didn't talk back. For me, that was a really big thing, like someone telling me or talking back to me and telling me what to do. But like, I started watching a lot of YouTube videos, and I started seeking support that way. It was free. It was accessible at 3:00 in the morning. And it kept me company through the hardest times, like the initial days were YouTube videos. And there are so many amazing resources via YouTube that are phenomenal, that I would really recommend that you try. So again, online, like Melissa said, in general, but to get very specific with you, go to your Facebook groups, go to your medical doctor, YouTube. And again, if you need that physical support, and again, like both of my parents passed away, so like I didn't have family. And so I really I would take a drive And, I'd listen to all my sad music on the way over there, but I'd take the drive every week to go to the support group. And that was really like my outlet. And it was my time for myself. And it really helped me. So support is a necessity. It doesn't mean that you have to repeat what's happened. It doesn't mean that you have to talk about it, but you can just say, hey, I don't want to be alone. That's how I was for a really long time. I couldn't be alone. And so I just needed that type of support. So.
Yeah. And one thing I thought about is the support system is also in a way, not just like your vent buddy, or a place to just throw things out, but to hold you accountable as well. And so if you're in the beginning stages of this and you really literally are like me and have to set a timer to drink water, you can also, whether it's lifelong friends or maybe you find somebody that you just click with inside of a Facebook group, for example, and say, hey, let's hold each other up and call each other out on our crap. And every day, just you can just send your new friend 7 things that they need to every day, randomly text you. Did you do this? Did you do this? And that's just double, another reinforcement of just, I have to do these things. And right now they're really hard. And so can you, hold me accountable and I'm going to do it for you. That's a really big piece, especially when you're in the beginning and really struggling with those basic, self-care survival kind of pieces. So another part of this, I think, is how to ask for help. Man, is that hard. I don't know if it's just me, but when I was I've had 2 back surgeries in the last handful of years. And I was single for the first one. So it was me, my little 2 babies, and I'm in a wheelchair and I have back surgery. And leading up to the back surgery, I literally couldn't take the trash out. I couldn't cut the bushes or the grass. I couldn't do anything. So, and I have a lot of German pride, and I did not want to ask for help. And I think that this really stems a lot from just how I grew up. But also, if I finally ask somebody for help, like a family member, a close family member that you would expect to say, definitely, it would take me weeks to get the courage up to ask them. And there was no reason for that. It was a good relationship. But I was so afraid of hearing no, or I can't, just not getting it. And it felt like, in a way, it was like my self-worth was being judged. I need to trim the bushes. My HOA is giving me fines. I can't do it. Will you help me? And if the answer was I can't or I won't, I just was not good. I was not worth it. And so that's something I had to just work through. And I got a lot of no's, which sucked. And then I did get yeses because I live in the South in North Carolina, and people are always like, let me know if you need anything. And I'd be like, sure. And I hate that question. And eventually I got to the point where I would just say, yes, this is what I need. What can you do? And it felt really weird. Actually, it took me probably 3 years to get good at this, and I still sort of suck at it. So that's something I want to kind of talk about, is ways to ask for help for, different people and where they are in life. If you're older and you really need help, I did physically needed help, or maybe you need help with cooking, that kind of thing. So if you guys have any tips for that, kind of how to ask people when they sort of offer, or if they don't offer at all.
Yeah. And I think exactly what you said, Melissa, one of the biggest reasons why we don't ask for help is because, like Mela was saying before, we're already feeling so raw, and we're already feeling so we're struggling. And the thought of hearing a no just feels like I can't handle something else. I can't handle another blow. And because that's what it feels like she was talking about, at the soccer practice or the football practice or whatever. And that blow, of somebody else doing something or being able to do what we can't do, or even, hearing a no feels really like my emotions can't handle that right now. And so, I think sometimes being able to almost like pave the way for people, and it paves the way for our emotions as well, like to be able for us to be able to handle it. It's to be able to ask people and be able to say to them right off the bat, like, I totally understand if you can't, and no is an acceptable answer, but I'm wondering if you can do this, and if not, that's okay. And so we think that we're like padding the way for the other person to say no, but what we're actually doing is we're padding the way for us to be able to accept the no, to be able to say, okay, like I'm going to give this person an out so that if they do take that out, it's not going to feel quite so hard. And then the other part of it too is reminding ourselves that, like exactly what Mello said, our world has stopped. Our world has been turned on its head, but other people's lives are still going, and they're dealing with their own stuff, and they're dealing with their things, and maybe they're not at the same, they're not dealing with things that are as serious as us, but they are still trying to kind of make their way through the world as well. And so if someone does say no, or they're not able to just kind of remind ourselves of that, like, this is not personal, because other people do have stuff going on. And it's so hard when we're vulnerable to not take things personally, but to just be able to take a step back, and then go on to the next person and almost see it as like, I'm going to keep asking until someone says yes. I'm going to keep asking until someone does have some free time, not till someone is able to be there for me, because that implies that it's like, if they're not able to be there for me, then that I'm not valuable, or that they don't care about me, or that I'm not worth it. But being like, I'm going to keep asking until I find someone who has a break in their schedule, or a break in what they're able to do. This isn't personal. This is about finding, like, just keep stabbing in the dark until you get one that sticks, and allowing ourselves to have a support network, right? Like, it's not just about putting it all on one person, but finding a support network, if that's a combination of a support group and online stuff, and your therapist and your doctor and your friend and someone that you've developed a relationship with through online, like kind of just like spreading your net. And so then it doesn't feel like you're putting all of it into one thing or one person or one place, so that if that thing can't come through for you at that moment, then you're totally devastated because you've got nothing else. So figuring out how to kind of spread that net wide, and how to, again, just give people that out, and just sort of prep yourself emotionally a bit. Mind your thoughts around that. Like, my thoughts are not going to be that if someone says no, it means that I'm not valuable or worth it. It means that they're just not able to, just like I'm not always able to drop everything for everyone who asks at the drop of a pin. And if I am doing that, well then, then I need to take a little bit of a step back and have a look at my boundaries.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Okay, so I think for this week, your homework is, if you don't feel like you have a good, strong support group or support system, to get one. We've given you a lot of great places to look. Definitely use our group and be connected in that way with people who are getting the same information you're getting. Reach out to some trusted friends or family. But next week, we want to see a bunch of comments from you about how you've gotten yourself a support group, people you trust. Doesn't mean you need to have 400 people, just a handful of people that are going to really help shoulder this with you, and go through all the fun stuff we're going to go through. So that's it. We're going to see you guys next week, and thanks again. Bye.